your name we pray. Amen.
Would you join me in the pledge of allegiance? First, the United States flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. And that will move us to item 4, proclamations. And I think we have that up at the front. Okay. We have the volunteers here. If you come up and join us, please.
Take some of the noise out of it.
Well, it's warm air down there anyhow, the air conditioning running.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So a proclamation. Whereas we're living in a moment that calls for hope and light and love. Hope for our futures, light to see our way forward, and love for one another. Volunteers provide all three. Service, the act of looking out for one another, is part of who we are as a nation and who we are as a community. Whereas, when more Americans step forward to serve, it renews our sense of community and strengthens our democracy. Acts of service unite people from different backgrounds and allow us to truly see and hear one another. Whereas, by helping others, volunteers also help themselves. They learn new skills, expand their professional networks, connect with neighbors, and experience the satisfaction that comes from serving a larger cause. Service can provide a pathway to employment, education, and other career-building opportunities. Whereas, during National Volunteer Week, we celebrate our local Dickinsonians who volunteer and exemplify the very shine principles that our city places our core values on. Service, humility, integrity, nobility, and excellence. These volunteers participate in enrichment work for the animals, designing and building new toys for the cat room, dishes, folding laundry, sweeping floors, and many other housekeeping items. Whereas, the staff at the animal shelter would not be able to care for animals at the level that they do without the help of these individuals. Their commitment to serving at the shelter allows Bayou Animal Services to provide quality care for the animals they rescue. These volunteers' big hearts and warm smiles also provide much needed encouragement even in the most challenging of situations. Now, therefore I, Sean Skipworth, Mayor of the City of Dickinson and the great state of Texas, do hereby proclaim April 26, 2022 as Bayou Animal Services Volunteer Appreciation Day. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Dickinson, Texas to be affixed this 26th day of April, 2022. Please give them a All right, that will move us on to item 5, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council may not deliberate. And first up, we have Tammy Steenbarge.
My name is Tammy Steenbarge, and I live at 5109 Casa Grande Street, Dickinson, Texas. I was born and raised here, and I'm a second-generation business owner. I'm not a politician, will never be an elected official, and have no hidden agenda. I've spent the last 7 years active in the community, learning how a city runs. 6 months ago, things changed for me. The things that I have learned and seen are sad, shocking, and frightening. I have documentation and proof to back up anything I say tonight. No witch hunts or political theaters, just facts. I believe the community needs to know and deserves to know what is going on. I supported and voted for the mayor. I believed in council when they hired our city manager. I believe the mayor when in an article he said our city manager will engage and instill confidence in residents and have those direct conversations. The council was convinced he was committed to a transparent government and be open with the residents. I have lost all trust and respect in the mayor, city manager, and council to be transparent, truthful, ethical, and professional to represent our city. The mayor accused 4 EDC board members of a walking quorum, but only 2 were removed. Per the text the mayor initiated with me, he said, it's worth keeping him to have him publicly counter what Joe has been saying and put him on a short leash. Is that the secret to being appointed to and being kept on a board? Do we allow them to barter for their positions? Regarding removing said person, the mayor says in text, he had the votes, he didn't have the votes, and people started wavering. Is it right these decisions were made outside of a posted meeting behind closed doors? Is it not a clear violation of an Open Meetings Act? What other deals are made behind closed doors? This is the only political theater I see going on. Former City Secretary Natasha Hinton wasn't given the opportunity to speak in executive session to express her concerns. Comments on Facebook are as followed. Our city secretary resigned 3 weeks ago and is disgruntled. This is a political theater, and I would rather move on. I think this was a forced resignation. I think she didn't play along and brought up election concerns, and the city retaliated. At a public event in March, a city council member gave me 4 letters written against Natasha Hinton. The names of the city employees who wrote them, as well as the dates, had been redacted. I didn't ask for those letters, but after reading them, I now believe this was an attempt to embarrass her and ruin her credibility. Do we have no shame? Do we not realize the effects this has on people's lives, families, and careers?
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes is up.
I yield the floor.
It's 3 minutes per speaker.
I've been in here before, and people have gone over 3 minutes.
It would take a motion for the council and approval for them to do that. It's a 3 minute.
I have been in here plenty of times where people have gone over 3 minutes. May I have the council's approval?
I move that you be allowed to speak.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Hey,
I said, I want to let her speak.
and
All right,
count.
motion
We have
carries.
nothing to
Continue.
hide. Just let her speak. She has a right to speak.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Count of hands.
Let me figure out where I was. Yet we have a city employee with an active and open family domestic violence case and was afforded an internal investigation by city council into allegations and then put back to work effective immediately. But Galveston County conducted their own investigation and says in a sworn-in affidavit, it has good reason to believe and does believe said person did then and there intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly cause body harm. Comments on I-45 article, just following the course charted in Dayton, just didn't get out in Dayton. This is a double standard. Text from mayor regarding text against another former city employee, Alun Thomas. I could use some backup on this post being smeared by a disgruntled employee's wife. Alun Thomas just won't let it go and continues to stir up drama and can't have it and be productive. Alun Thomas, former city secretary, and Penny Hunter, former finance director, filed a complaint with the city about unethical and illegal behavior of a city employee. They were labeled bad employees and disgruntled by the then city council and then mayor. Alun Thomas received a settlement from the city with an NDA. He is now the city secretary in Santa Fe, and Penny Hunter received a settlement from the city of $175,000. That sounds a little more than disgruntled. I have been publicly bullied by public officials for simply, I'm sorry, I'm shaking, I don't normally, for simply questioning their behavior and asking questions. I asked about contaminated and dirty ditch dirt, and they have found ways to retaliate. All of this has made me investigate Dayton, Texas. It is disgusting and shocking what I have learned. In mid-2020, the Dayton Community Development Corporation Director filed a complaint against city employee regarding behavior and raising concerns regarding financial matters. They were not addressed as she was told. In May 2021, she filed a complaint against 4 individuals with the city of Dayton, and it was reported in the local newspaper. She said, in trying to do what I thought was morally and ethically right and best for citizens of Dayton, I have been forced to deal with increased retaliation, discrimination, and harassment by a group of people employed, elected, and appointed by the city of Dayton, who socialize and fraternize with each other on a consistent basis. The same could be said about Natasha Hinton's experience. 2 weeks ago, a local newspaper from Dayton reported that the city of Dayton is tackling a financial crisis of a $5 million shortfall. The current city manager, who joined the city in January of 2022, explained that the city's financial problems first came to light when the new finance director found and reported the issues. He explained that over the last few years, the city has spent large sums on lawsuits, settlements, legal fees from outside attorneys, and professional services. 24 people have been laid off, and all non-necessary city services have been suspended. The citizens I have spoke to agree that this is unacceptable behavior, but worried that the removal of the current administration will result in something worse. But I submit that we can have better if we demand better. We are so beaten down that the grass being mowed and the streets being swept seems enough. City council works for us. They are not royalty, and this is not Russia, and we are not beggars. I have more information. If anybody would like any copies of this to show, this isn't just my words. These are facts. And I appreciate y'all listening to me and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Eddie Abbott. Mr. Abbott?
I yield.
Very well. We have Mr., is it Mary Lou Jackson?
I yield.
All right. Megan Parker?
Megan Parker. I came here today to inform council about the events that happened leading up to my wrongful termination. I started with the city at the end of August last year as the administrator for Public Works. I never had a problem until around October when a tech had been hurt, and only me finding out after that only Public Works and Animal Shelter had to submit a drug test. I did not understand why. On the way to do my drug test at City Hall, Mr. Santiago, who was at the time the supervisor at Public Works, asked me if I smoked heroin. Before I went in to do my drug test, I reported it to Mr. Foley. Shortly after that, City Hall held an employee Thanksgiving lunch. While attending, I wanted to introduce myself to the city manager. As I approached him, he turned around and walked away. I continued to proceed to my seat and talk to my fellow coworkers. A day or so later, my manager of Public Works, Mr. Foley, was suspended and nobody knew why. We were told by Mr. Santiago, who was a superintendent at the time, that HR and the second hand to the city manager were coming to Public Works to speak to everyone about what happened. That never happened. Next thing, we were told that everyone was going to get called one by one to City Hall. That never happened. By the end of the day, I had 2 texts informing me that HR asked them if I was coming to work Monday through Friday. I was confused and shocked. On December 2nd, I took the day off due to my blood pressure being so high. Around 7 a.m. that morning is when I got an alert from Indeed that showed Public Works administrative posting. I immediately drove to City Hall to find out what was going on. My mother came to meet with me. I requested to speak to the mayor. I was told he would be right out. He did not come. I requested to speak to the city manager. In about 3 hours, nobody came out. I left City Hall and came back an hour later hoping to speak to someone when I noticed officers coming into the building and heard women laughing, saying they brought in police for them. I noticed my supervisors, Ms. Gray, and a tech sitting in City Hall, and Mr. Santiago told us all to come to the back. When I went to the back, I noticed an officer and also one in the room we sat in. Shortly, the second-hand assistant came in with HR, shaking with nervousness in his voice, telling us all that we were all on 90-day probation. Today would be our last day. The city manager has decided to go in a different route. We all looked at each other and looked back at him and asked why. He stated he doesn't know why, he cannot tell us, and to ask HR in a few days. We all then looked at HR and she just stared at us. On December 3rd, I filed for unemployment. I waited a week and a half, and unemployment informed me that the city stated I violated city policy. Unemployment then stated they are waiting on proof. I waited another week, and unemployment granted me my unemployment. Never was there any proof sent to them. I do not know why I was terminated. I was left without a job for no reason and bills, and on top of that, figuring out how I was gonna make Christmas happen for my 6-year-old. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Jason Elliott.
Good time, guys. I don't have anything prepared. Probably won't take 3 minutes, but my name is Jason Elliott. I live at 2209 Gill Road. We have a nice, peaceful neighborhood, but 75 feet from our house, we have a rooster. I am sure it's a very divisive topic, but we've tried animal control. We've talked to the neighbors. We're very polite. We're easygoing people, but we kind of appeal to the city council if there's something we can do. I don't know. It's 5:30 in the morning, 7 days a week till 7 p.m. at night, and I feel Dickinson's a pretty big city now, and Houston's coming this way. There's a lot of us living here, and I was just hoping maybe anybody have some ideas or something we can do, or. Really, yeah. They've been very polite. They've come out and they said there's really nothing we can do, and awesome. Yeah, happy to help, and just hoping y'all can help us. Thank you, guys. Yep.
All right, we have Mr. Joe Wilbur.
Joe Wilbur, 5720 Forest Cove, Dickinson, Texas. As everyone here on council is aware, a criminal complaint was previously filed against me that was publicly announced that has caused harm to my personal and business reputation. I believe that when this complaint was intentionally filed, the top elected official in the city of Dickinson violated Texas Penal Code 36.06, obstruction or retaliation, and Texas Penal Code 37.08, false report to a law enforcement agency. To that end, and in an attempt to properly clear my name, I am filing my own criminal complaint against Mayor Skipworth tomorrow morning. I felt a duty to make the council aware of this filing, and if anybody would like a copy of it, I have it. And I just wonder how many lives can be ruined by one council, by one person, or maybe two. How many lives are going to have to suffer? How many people lose their How many people lose their paychecks because we don't agree politically with somebody and there's no reasoning? And that wasn't what was put in the paper when the mayor was looking for his job. He was reasonable with everybody, according to the articles. Y'all can go back to the Galveston News and read it. And I think a lot of people, over 30 people in the city, have lost their paychecks. While the mayor enjoys tenure, nobody can get him fired. He'll probably never know what it's like to lose pay, to lose a reputation, a business reputation that somebody's worked for a lot of years to try to build. But the front page article, it definitely hurt me, and I know there's happiness in that to some, but this is a start of something further. Thank you much.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Billy Sparks. Mr. Sparks?
My name's Billy Sparks, and I live at 3816 Kellner Drive here in Dickinson. Please listen to me carefully. A city near here recently asked their candidates a question in light of recent funding regarding the financial situation of the city, how you foresee preventing this in the future. Their responses were, we need to do a forensic type of background check when hiring. There was not transparency or integrity. The previous administration destroyed our city council. We were presented with inaccurate and fraudulent information. Trust was then lost. The last city manager blew smoke up our behinds. There was a lot of money spent on litigation. Money was wasted. A lot of good people were harmed by the previous city manager. He's concerned that the next city would be destroyed by the one who just left their city. On April 15th, it was reported that this city laid off 24 employees due to a $5 million shortfall. It was reported they spent large sums of money on lawsuit settlements, legal fees, and outside attorneys, consulting fees. To add revenue, they now doubled the water rates, the sewer rate, and increased it 8% for the next 8 years. The city manager informed both city council and the public that the city was in dire financial shape. Recently in the city, a city secretary denied opportunity to speak to the council behind closed doors. She was concerned about several things. She was concerned about childish behavior, frequent mood swings, which included wadding up paper and throwing it at her, and crying at staff meetings. She was concerned when someone was discussed historical figures that used control and torture to get compliance. She was told to get on board or get fired. She was concerned that HR asked employees to do statements against her to deflect away from affairs and firings. She was concerned that affairs were not addressed. She feared for her job and retaliation. She was concerned about expenditures and balances and the increased spending with no concern on how to fund it. The public had been told there were legal reasons for not bringing her to the city, into the city. What are those reasons? Yet just not long ago, there was an item placed on the agenda that would not be legal. Look at the agenda from December 14th, 2021. There was an action on the item to remove position 1, Kevin Edmonds, from the Board of Adjustments. The law says the appointing authority may remove a board member for cause as found by the appointing authority on a written charge after a public hearing. So who controls the agenda? Is it the mayor, the city manager, or the city attorney? Remember, on that same agenda, someone wanted to remove positions 1, 3, and 6 from the EDC board. Even though 4 people were accused of walking the quorum, only 3 were placed on the agenda, and then only 2 removed. The text message from one of the elected officials reveals how that was accomplished. Every citizen in Dickinson needs to pay attention. With the current problems in Dayton, can we trust what we are told here? The same shine principles have been demolished in Dayton. The citizens of Dickinson deserve better. The mayor will probably tell you again that I'm making council look like a bunch of clowns, look like a bunch of clowns, and I'm on a witch hunt, and it's all political theater. You've been warned.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Wooten.
Good evening. My name is Matt Wooten, reside at 1309 Forest Cove Court. Excuse the Brooklyn accent. I'm not nearly as eloquent as some of the speakers in front of me, but I did have a few things I'd like to address. After watching the recent video Wayne Dosfino put out, how much money do the taxpayers of Dickinson have to pay to satisfy the political aspirations of our leaders? A potential College of the Mainland building was being negotiated for the political rise of a few already in power. We now have to pay for a parking garage that will benefit a single developer who is acquiring the property at virtually no cost. Are the taxpayers now funding Destination Dickinson? Are we planning to take money from the Dickinson Management District to fund a ballpark? If so, is the property more than or equal to the $20,000 an acre we got for the 40-plus acres on Hughes Road? Once again, everyone needs to watch the Facebook homepage of the city of Dayton, and it'll paint a pretty good picture of where the city of Dickinson is headed under this current leadership. We're hiring consultants at an accelerated rate, and millions are being spent on outside consultants. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. And then finally, we have Mr. Jeff Nunn.
I yield, sir. I'm more for the Water Street project.
Okay.
Different agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, then we've got that one. All right, that will conclude item 5. We'll move on to item 6, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.0415. We'll move on to item 6A, council comments. We'll start with Councilman Schrader.
Welcome, everybody. I have no comments.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wilson?
Yes, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. A lot more people than normal in here. Anyway, I'd also like to remind everybody that on the first Friday in May, there will be a Knights of Columbus Fish Fry, which is every first Friday in May. If you like good fish and everything else, it's something to attend. I also would like to say congratulations to the Historical Society's fundraiser they had last Friday. They had a very decent crowd. Wasn't as big as it normally is. I'm not too sure whether people are still scared of COVID or what, or just getting back to going to these events is still slowed people down. But they do a lot of good work, and like I said, it was a success. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Councilman Dietz.
Thanks, Mayor. It's good to see such a large crowd here. Welcome. I'd like to remind everybody that early voting started in the election, so make sure you get out and vote. It's really important. Just a quick update on the Great Blue Heron project that the Art Guild is sponsoring. The city's worked with the Art Guild, and they've started excavating the foundations for the first 5. Those foundations should be poured in the next week or so, and then the first 5 herons will be installed. So if you see, like out in front of City Hall and over at the boat ramp in Paul Hopkins Park, some yellow tape and stakes staked out there, that's what's going in. That's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Decker.
Good evening. See a lot of older faces that have been here and a bunch of new ones. Today, I witnessed the new street sweeper. It did a fantastic job. This curb across from me, I went over and looked at, there was nothing there, and I didn't have time to see it come back. But it's a sight to see. That's all, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. And Councilman King.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager, City Attorney, City Secretaries, to all our staff and citizens who are present here on tonight. It's certainly a pleasure to see as many faces in the council chambers. Certainly, it's an awesome experience to be a part of our democracy and opportunities that we share in this great country. I want to offer my condolences to the Palmer family. Mr. William George Palmer. Memorial service will be in Dickinson. And Palmer family is a well-known family here in the city of Dickinson. It will be at 12 noon on April the 30th at the Mount Carmel Baptist Church. On that same day, one of our Dickinson High School graduates played football for the Dickinson Gators, Mr. Jalen Wademeyer, who all played football for Texas A&M as a wide receiver, did fantastic in his freshman year and proceeded on the same in his sophomore and junior year, has now decided to go for the NFL draft. That's going to be taking place this coming Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so we're looking for him to get drafted sometime on Saturday. We're going to have a draft party for the Dickinson Gators that desire to be a part of the celebration of Jalen Wademeyer. We're certainly proud of him. We haven't had that in Dickinson since Andre Ware, and so we're excited to see another Dickinson Gator doing extremely well in life. I was able to attend the NIA Juneteenth Cultural Center ribbon cutting ceremony on April the 1st. That's 2217 Strand Street in Galveston. On April the 5th, I spoke to the Gulf Coast Workforce Solutions. Mr. Mark Guthrie is the chairman of the board, and as the chairman of HGC board, we're able to speak during their board meeting and concerning the Gulf Coast Workforce Solution and what they're doing in our 13-county region, especially within the Galveston County area. I was the first chairman of the board of HGC to ever address the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. On April the 9th, attended the Dickinson Police Department DCP AAA annual banquet at the Knights of Columbus Hall. I want to congratulate all the officers that were recognized tonight, especially our Officer of the Year, Michael Kinsley. Michael Kinsley is from Ukraine, and even at this hour, his mother's home is having bombs being fired all around her home. He speaks 5 different languages. He's an outstanding officer, so that we encourage you to, when you see him, to encourage him as the Officer of the Year. As 2 of our council members have already articulated, the Dickinson Historical Society celebrated a great fundraiser during the Wine and Roses at the Knights of Columbus Hall for the fundraising efforts of the Knights of Columbus. Hope everyone had a wonderful Easter. And as we all are aware, we are now in election season for the city of Dickinson, which goes April the 25th through the 29th, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., May the 2nd and 3rd, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then May the 7th is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's election day. We do have 2 Texas constitutional amendments that are on the ballot, and we also have in position number 2, Ms. Gina Simpson, running unopposed, and we also have Mr. Jesse Brantley, position 4, running unopposed. And then we have 2 candidates, John Juneman and Fred Linton, running in position 6. WCID also has the positions open, and they have 3 candidates, Ms. Doreen Bridges, Ron Morales, and Bill Gaffey. We certainly hope and encourage everyone participating in our civic duty to get out and vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City staff, citizens, welcome. I also want to reiterate some of the comments that some of my fellow council members have said. Early voting has started. 3 candidates for city council, or 3 positions for city council, 2 constitutional amendments, and water district election. Hurricane season is also around the corner. We're getting real close to that, and I know us in Dickinson don't have to spend too much time dawdling around. We are definitely going to get prepared. Forgot to mention this last meeting, but I want to commend Texas, New Mexico, and Power. I had on different occasions lights go out in my subdivision. Street lights go out in my subdivision, and they fixed both of them within 2 business days. I assume the reason it was so fast is to complete the website information. I filled in every spot, including the GPS coordinates for it, which you can get if you look up the address in Google Maps. If you paste the GPS coordinates, they were both out each time in 2 business days. Since the last meeting, as a president of the management district, we took a photo op with the Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department. The management district funded the purchase of some equipment for the volunteer fire department to the tune of $236,000. Also attended the McCree Ford 75th anniversary celebration. McCree Ford has been a great corporate citizen and add to the city of Dickinson, and Mitchell Dale has worked in this community for a long time. I want to commend the Dickinson Police Department, particularly Sergeant Porter. My church had a Easter egg hunt for the community Saturday before Easter, and she was patrolling the neighborhood and stopped, gave the kids some toys and some coloring books and some extra large tubes for bubbles. My children are still playing with them right now, but definitely something for community policing. Also attended the April Houston Galveston Area Council regular board meeting, and along with other councilmen, the Dickinson Historical Society Wine and Roses Gala at the Knights of Columbus Hall. Since I don't know what's going to happen next month, I'm gonna get my comments in now. I may be getting off a plane coming to the next meeting. I do want to say to my departing councilman, Councilman King, it has been a pleasure. One of the very first people I met when I started working in Dickinson, and I know I'm going to still see you because of Dickinson Ministerial Alliance and a few other things where we co-labor together. Councilman Dietz, it's been a good experience. I know I won't not see you anymore because with Destination Dickinson and a few other things, I expect you to still be around. I forgot to say for Councilman King, may the Lord bless and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace as well. And Councilman Schrader, I know we haven't been on council together long, but we did work together with the Charter Review Committee before I had to go to the hospital for my health issues. But I will say that may the Lord watch between me and thee while we are apart. Those are all my council comments, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I saw Councilman King signaling to me.
Yeah,
You had
Mayor,
something
excuse
else?
me, Council. I failed to mention that I want to thank Mr. Theo Melanson. I had a couple of issues over the last 6 weeks that needed to be addressed, and I appreciate the fact that you were accessible and you were also active in resolving conflict, and I appreciate your conflict resolution skills for the services you provide to our citizens. I can't thank him for what he's done.
All right. That moves to item 6B, the city manager update, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, well, so first I was going to let you know, guys, last week had a great meeting with our Youth Action Commission. We had their second meeting. It was really interesting to watch them working through how to do motions and voting and roll call. So we do have them set up for a few projects forthcoming. I even tasked them with working on an ordinance that they have an interest in and working with our city attorney, and for them to be able to present something at council at a future date so that they can actually be a part of the lawmaking process in our city. So very exciting for that. Also in line with that, as part of one of the things that when I first got here, we talked about wanting to have more youth engagement. Very proud to announce that we do have 8 internship positions opened up this summer in various departments across the city. We're going to be providing a lot of hands-on experience working with a multitude of departments, so very exciting to do that. Want to let you know that we are moving forward on our flood mitigation, $49.7 million project forthcoming. That's going to be including Hughes Road. We're currently working on the early portions of trying to figure out kind of the routing on the far east side of that project. And so we should be going out for bid on that relatively soon. I am also working with Hewitt Zollers on our flood mitigation project in round 2 of the mod, which again, Councilman King has been hip deep in, I would say, or neck deep maybe, in that process. And so that project we're looking at, if you remember, we're really kind of targeting the Moore's Addition area to siphon under that really shallow pipeline to be able to get to Benson Bayou. And so what I would be expecting is over the next few months, as those numbers solidify as to how much money we get in that second phase of the mod, that we then scope the work based on the money that comes in. That being said, another area we're looking at is there's a federal funding source for the HMGP, and that we're hoping to get somewhere between $8 to $12 million, maybe a little more. This is a 90-10 match, meaning federal government puts up 90%, we put up 10% of that. That would be for us to continue work on Benson Bayou, including dredging near the Dickinson Bayou confluence of Benson Bayou, because so the goal would be siphon project out of Moore's Addition, have a nice efficient drainage system going west. As it's going into Benson Bayou, we have a nice dredge project and some other drainage improvements going south toward Dickinson Bayou. So that's the plan on those flood mitigation projects. Also want to let you know, Assistant City Manager Chase Carey has been working with Alexis Santiago on the street lights project. We have identified approximately 40 street lights that need to be installed in our current city that to light up certain areas that are woefully underlit. We are currently waiting. It'll be about 60 days, but Texas, New Mexico is going to be providing us a quote for all of that work. They will be LED. And then we're going to be turning that over to the Dickinson Management District to begin the process of looking at how how much would they like to fund and for us to move forward on lighting up the city. Just so you know, we will be bringing, next month, we'll be looking at bringing Goodman Corporation in, who does a lot of mobility work. They do a lot of sidewalk work and unlock a lot of grants at the state and federal level. One of the big issues we run into is we don't have the safe sidewalks that we desperately need, especially having safe routes to school. And so one of the main things we're going to do is tying in with the street lights that we'll be bringing forth, also beginning the process of engaging TxDOT to work on some grant funding that could pay up to about 65 to 70% of the cost for sidewalks that leave all the campuses around school. So just letting you know those things are on the horizon. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions about the report? All right, we'll move on to item 7, public hearing and action items from public hearing. Item 7A, conduct a public hearing concerning a request to amend the official zoning map from Interstate Commercial IC zoning district to a planned development zoning district for approximately 14.93 acres, generally located west of Interstate 45, south of West FM 517 Road, and legally described as 4.13 acres out of DEDC subdivision number 1, 2015, abstract 19, lot 2, 3.08 acres out of abstract 19, Perry and Austin survey, part of lot 174, Dickinson addition, D, 3.1 acres out of abstract 19, Perry and Austin survey, part lots 167 and 174, 0 through 5, Dickinson addition, D, 1.16 acres out of abstract 19, Perry and Austin survey, res H-2, 8 through 100, Dickinson Square partial replat, 2.73 acres out of abstract 19, Perry and Austin survey, res H1, 8 through 101, Dickinson Square partial replat, and 0.73 acres out of abstract 19, Perry and Austin survey, part of lot 167, 0 through 6, Dickinson addition D. Okay, staff presentation. Thank you, Yvonne.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. This is a zoning map amendment request to change from interstate commercial to a planned development. The property is located on the west side of I-45, south of 517, and north of the bayou. This is the site plan that's currently being proposed with the different uses. The different uses that are actually being proposed are not in line with one zoning district, which is why the need for the planned development exists. The proposed uses in comparison to the permitted uses in the current interstate commercial zoning district. So what's being actually proposed is all of the uses in interstate commercial, all of the uses in the high density residential, plus a handful of additional uses. In addition, if there's a specific use permit that's permitted those are also included in this plan development. So the same specific use permits that are available in high-density residential or all the districts would be allowed in this plan development as well. This last column at the bottom right-hand corner are uses that are actually included in the permitted uses that in neighborhood commercial or general commercial currently have specific use permits required on them, but they would be allowed by right in the plan development. This is the site plan that shows this basically kind of the proposed uses and where they're located. So on the north side, or the northernmost portion of the property, what's in purple, is proposed as a hotel. Just south of that in red is an event center and a parking garage, which is shown in gray. And then there is some proposed multifamily. Inside the plan development, they are maxing the multifamily at 200 units, which is what's shown in yellow. Retail and restaurant is proposed along I-45, basically everything with I-45 frontage, and then also along the bayou in orange. And then townhomes on the southwest portion of the property, and included in the plan development, they are maxing that at 10 units. Open space is spread throughout the proposed development. The applicant is proposing 20% of the land that is for residential use to be required as open space, and 10% of the use for the commercial uses as open space. This slide actually just shows the landscape plan. So they're looking at, green space basically along the bayou, kind of extending the bayou up all the way through the property, so that a lot of the development will actually have waterfront. And then this page shows the vehicular access and connectivity. So you can see that they are planning both north and south and east to west connections, both to Hughes Road and then also to Medical Park. So staff does recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment. We do recommend a couple of changes. We did do a review, and we got one comment back from engineering, and so we would like the PD ordinance to be modified to show on the exhibit or state in the application that detention will be provided south of Dickinson Bayou. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with staff's proposed changes, and that was by unanimous vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have an applicant here for presentation?
Good evening, Council. Name's Daniel Blanco. I live at 3507 Bordingoli, Dickinson, Texas. No particular presentation this evening. I'm here to answer questions after the public comments. Ms. Briscoe did a great job explaining our land plan. One of the highlighted features that we wanted to make sure that was front and center was indeed the fact that we're changing the navigation of the bayou and bringing in a water feature throughout the entire development so that we could have more interaction with the water. So everything else Ms. Briscoe nailed. The two components that we're adding on this proposed land plan that is not currently allowed in interstate commercial is the multifamily and the townhome components. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. As far as public comments, we have two. Jeff, would you want to speak on this item? Yeah, go ahead and come on up.
My name is Jeff Nuss. I live at 3822 Water Street. So I can't speak for the whole neighborhood. There's lots of my neighbors here, but the neighbors I've talked to, it's very simple. Our main concern is people cutting through the neighborhood. We want to do everything we can do to prevent traffic flow through the neighborhood, going back out through Paps or going back out through Kellner. That is everything that I've heard that's their main concern. I think people will enjoy the restaurants. I think people will enjoy going to the restaurants on golf carts and in their boats, but how can we prevent everybody cutting through the neighborhood? And I'll just keep it as simple as that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then we also have Mr. Copeland.
Mayor, Council, City Manager, appreciate the opportunity to talk. I had 3 items I wanted talk about, one of them has been covered briefly already, but the first item I think ought to be talked about is the method at which this application for rezoning was initiated. EDC hired an agent to file the application for them, which required a notarization showing the authority that's been given to the agent to do all of this. And as far as what I've seen in the public record, that hadn't been done. And so the form itself says it's required. So if it's required, I would expect it to be done. The other thing I'd like to talk about is that planning and zoning mentioned that south of the bio there was going to be retention ponding. That's not in here anywhere. I think they mentioned that in the presentation earlier, but in the documentation that's in the record right now that planning and zoning based their decision on showed retention on the south side. So if you're going to retain floodwater, you expect it to be on the same side of the bayou that the flood's going to come from. You can't put it across the bayou and then retain it. The other part I'd like to mention is that the planning, when they approved this, made the statement that this will provide diverse housing stock within the city, including a full range of housing types and values to accommodate various income levels for existing and prospective residents, which is a laudable goal. And then later they insert that they're going to limit the materials that can be used in construction to only high-end materials. They're eliminating plastic siding, hardy plank, exposed aggregate exteriors. And I think the legislature has already addressed that, and you really can't do that, I don't think. So I think this whole thing ought to be looked at again from the beginning, starting with how the application was filed and what's actually included in the plan, what planning and zoning approved.
All right, thank you. Next, we have applicant's rebuttal.
Good evening, Council. I'll just try and touch on these points real quick. So as far as the landowner's consent form, we did indeed get a landowner's consent form from the EDC almost a year and a half ago whenever we were initially looking at the planning development. So we do have that readily available, executed by the EDC. As far as traffic, we are still in the conceptual phases, so there is going to be an entire traffic impact analysis that analyzes traffic flows, ingress, egress for the entire development. That is to come after we get our PD approval. We'll go through the entire traffic impact analysis. We will also do a detention analysis to analyze the hydrology in the area, making sure that we are detaining as appropriate. We still have the ability to detain underground inside our development, so that is a mechanism that we are prepared to use as well. As far as quality of housing and materials control, one of the things that the second commenter had mentioned was legislation has gotten rid of the ability for municipalities to control facades and elevations. That's entirely true. One of the great things about being an applicant is that we're able to put those into our PD and make it become an ordinance. So while the legislature says that the municipalities can't do it, there's nothing that stops us as an applicant to put that into the ordinance, and then once agreed upon, we have to meet or exceed those standards, and anybody behind us does. So hopefully that answers those 3 points. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we will adjourn this public hearing and move on to item 7B, Consider an ordinance concerning a request to amend the official zoning map from Interstate Commercial Zoning District to a Planned Development Zoning District for approximately 14.93 acres, generally located west of Interstate 45, south of West FM 517 Road, and legally described as 4.13 acres out of DEDC Subdivision Number 1, 2015, Abstract 19, Lot 2, 3.08 acres out of Abstract 19, Perry and Austin Survey, part of Lot 174, Lot 0 through 3, Dickinson Addition D, 3.1 acres out of Abstract 19, Perry and Austin Survey, part Lots 167 and 174, 0 through 5, Dickinson Addition D, 1.16 acres out of Abstract 19, Perry and Austin Survey, Res H-2, 8 through 100, Dickinson Square Partial Replat, 2.73 acres out of Abstract 19, Perry and Austin Survey, Res H-1, 8 through 101, Dickinson Square Partial Replat, in 0.73 acres out of Abstract 19, Perry and Austin Survey, part of Lot 167, 0 through 6, Dickinson Addition D.
Approve with staff recommendations.
There's a motion to approve by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Wilson. Is there any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Walter.
Question for the attorney. I've also had a couple of concerns about this. Do we have a notarized agreement? And where, I could not find it in the minutes of the EDC that this agreement was passed during a meeting and authorized as an agreement for him to be the agent.
You don't need an agreement. What you need is permission from the EDC, from the owner, to say that they have authorization to do it. It's an understanding that they have one.
Staff has that document. Staff has that document, so with any public information request, it can be gotten. I have it.
And it was passed in a public meeting. Is that correct?
It's in a public meeting, but I have an authorization that says
I've seen
that
that
the
authorization.
EDC, as the property owner, has given permission for the application.
So I've seen that authorization. Does that still hold? It was never done in public.
So who
In the meeting.
authorized it? Do you have a copy of it?
Scott Jones did, as far as I know. Is that correct?
It's not that he was the executive director?
Yes.
The executive director would be able to do that. It doesn't take,
We have the authority to do that without the board approving it.
yes, it's just an application.
Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, I have a question for the developer.
Mr. Blanco.
I was looking at your layout here, and I'm looking at this area of the expanded water feature. What is it, the development right now? Yes, size, width, and
So it's intended to be more of a reflection pond, so it's not a detention feature. So
Okay.
this could be anywhere from 5 to 6 feet. Imagine a sidewalk, a big sidewalk, maybe 6 to 10 feet wide and a foot to 2 foot shallow.
okay, so it doesn't rise and fall with the bio?
I'm sorry?
It won't rise and fall with the bio?
No. It's completely independent. So it's an artificial canal.
Gotcha.
And essentially the down towards the plan south, closer to the bayou, there's a piano weir, and the water will run over the weir into a pump system that then pumps it and cleans it and brings it back. So it's really a fancy swimming pool is what it is, and it looks like it ties into the bayou, but it's not tidal.
It's not tied into the actual drainage part of the development?
No, this is an independent feature.
That was one of my questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Dietz.
Yeah, hang on. Just a couple of points of clarification. I think I read in there where sorry, I'm looking at the drawing. I think I read in there where you might increase the number of residential by 20%, which on the apartments would be another 20 units. Is that, did I read that?
I'm sorry?
The parking requirement?
The parking requirement, or are you talking about the residential units?
The residential units.
Multifamily is capped at 200. Currently, we have a building design for about 150 of them.
Yeah,
And then
I thought I
residential.
read where you might increase it by 20%.
Our PD is capped at, capped at 200, so we have a
Well,
cap.
that's the other question then is this design in any way tied to the zoning change? In other words, how much of this design can be changed as long as it fits within the zone?
Yeah, so I believe the question
Design
is
can be
how much,
changed as long as it fits within the zoning change. How
Yes.
much of it is tied directly to the zoning change?
all of it is tied to our plan development application and the metrics that we put inside there. So we're asking for a 200-unit cap, and we cannot exceed that by 1 unit. Everything has to be 200 units or below.
So if I add up all the open space and all the residential and the parking, it seemed like, and so correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seemed like it could be somewhere between 30 and 40% of the land space. Does
For the
that-
open space,
If I include the open space related to the residential itself, and the parking for the residential, it could add up to 30 to 40% of the land use. Is that a fair statement?
the residential adding up to 30 to 40% of the land use? I don't believe so. We're approximately 430,000 square feet of use, not including the parking garage. So that would be an additional acre and a half. I don't have those numbers right in front of me, Mr. Dietz, but
Okay.
I mean, I'd imagine our residential is probably less than 20% of the total land use.
Does that include parking and open space for residential or?
The residential itself, so the parking garage, I mean, we use a shared parking analysis. We
For
have.
for your residential?
For the entire site. So from the plan development perspective, we have, again, 430,000 square feet of buildings out there that all have to come with their own parking requirements. And so the parking analysis is based off of 430,000 square feet of mixed-use development.
And you
Not
are-
particularly tied to residential or not.
And you are looking at angled parking on Water Street for?
Any parking on Water Street is not calculated in our parking requirements. It's probably just drawn in as a possible, but our on-site parking requirements are going to meet or exceed the city standards.
Okay, so the residential that's shown in yellow,
Yes, which yellow?
is that A1?
A1, okay, the multifamily.
The building in orange right next to that is, what is that?
So that, the
Restaurant,
orange
retail.
is, that's a multifamily over retail restaurant.
That was my question.
Yes, yeah.
That's a good concept.
Thank you. Yeah, so our goal is to bring the water feature in, and we really want to have an active water's edge throughout the entire development with food and beverage, retail, potentially office. B1's kind of our flex building right now that we'll find a use for, but food, beverage, office, and the point of the multifamily, the point of the residential is to make sure that we have the proper, and the hotel, quite frankly, is to make sure that we have the warm bodies on this site, that we can attract the right food and beverage and office.
Correct. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other Councilman
And
King?
my questions were, I'm sorry, my questions were pertaining, and I think Mr. Councilman Wilson asked the one about the water feature, and I think you've indicated that it's like a 2 feet depth that does not have any bearing with the rising or falling of the tide.
Correct,
And
yes.
that-
It is, for all intents and purposes, it's a swimming pool. And it's intended to be interactive, so when you're walking from a restaurant site to retail site, you are interacting with the water. You could bend down and touch it, but it operates completely independent of the bayou and the drainage system for the area.
Okay, and I like the improved features that you all have added, and I think it's going to be a great asset for Dickinson.
Councilman Decker?
This minimum of 20% open space of the gross acreage, does that apply here?
Yeah, 20% for the entire.
Page 62.
So 20% for the residential portion and 10% for the commercial portion for dedicated open space. I can tell you that our current land plan exceeds those standards. That's just the minimums that we put as a threshold.
Well, the impact to the environment, that's where I'm reading right here.
Yes, sir. So this isn't a previously developed site. There is a lot of impervious cover there to date, and then existing open spaces there to date. So we've walked the property a million times. We've had tree surveys done. We have groves of trees that we are preserving throughout the development. Our intention is to keep it open as possible, but also maintain a high-density environment to bring taxable value to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
All right, hearing none. Oh,
Just one statement.
yes.
So the document that y'all received tonight is the exact same document that was reviewed at Planning and Zoning Commission, so that you can see the exact same thing that they saw with their recommendation. So before we come back at the next meeting in a couple of weeks, you will see the new document that includes the recommendation by Planning and Zoning Commission. So this is the exact document that Planning and Zoning saw.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, hearing no other comments or questions, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 8, the consent agenda. I know there are 2 items that we need to remove at staff request.
Mayor, if we can make sure to record the vote, we did have 1 no.
Yes, we had, with
Okay.
Councilman Schrader voting no.
I just want to make sure, that's all.
We have 2 items we need to remove. Do you want?
I just didn't hear him say no.
Oh, yeah,
I
he
thought
did.
it was unanimous.
There's 2 items we need to remove from the consent agenda.
One from the consent agenda is 8H,
Okay.
dealing with the Tyler Technology Encode Suite.
One item, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So,
Was there somebody that wanted to speak on L?
no.
Okay.
Move to approve the consent agenda
Second.
with the item 8H out, removed.
Okay, so you second that? Motion, okay. There's a motion to approve the consent agenda, accepting item 8H. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and we'll just let 8H kind of hang out there. All right. Move us on to item 10, action items for consideration. Item 10A, consideration and possible action concerning approval of Dickinson Economic Development Corporation FY 21/22 budget amendment.
Mayor, Council, I'll have Cortland Holman, the Executive Director of the EDC, to come up and discuss the budget amendment. One of the big things that we're working on is really kind of retooling the EDC to be a stronger recruitment outreach to businesses, and I believe that this amendment is heavily in that vein. So, Cortland, I'm going to let you take over.
We are getting a lot busier, especially as was found out today. But I'm requesting to hire a deputy director at approximate $90,000 salary, plus or minus. And I've got a few interviews that are people that are applying. But as we try to work our magic, we are getting a lot busier, so we are going to various conferences. We're trying to do some outreach programs, and just being one of me is not sufficient to keep all the balls in the air. So I'm requesting an amendment to the budget to hire a deputy director.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Dietz and a second by Councilman King. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, what's the total head count for EDC?
I have myself and a secretary, coordinator. But I need somebody that has qualifications like me, that's been doing it for quite some time. So the job description is very descriptive of quite a bit of the duties. It's a salaried position, but it is not a starting position. It's somebody that has to be qualified with their EDC certification.
All right. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries with Councilman Schrader voting no. Item 10B, consideration and possible action concerning a consideration and possible action on a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving a purchase of a 20-foot workboat from Boatwright Marine, Inc. And I think we have our police chief, Mr. Morales, here. Chief Morales.
Yes, sir. I'm here to answer any question. I think you have the whole thing in your packet. Over the years, a little background, over the years, we've had numerous requests to make a presence on the bayou, which we have it. We've used the Sheriff's Department, we've used Parks and Wildlife. Last year, been 3 or 4 requests, and neither agency was able to come because they have their own responsibilities. So we figured it's about time that we do make a appearance. I have spent on Sunday some time down there, hour at a time, and the violations I see are just incredible. The worst one that got me weekend before last, pontoon boat, wide open, going through where the boat launch is in the bridge, and two little kids about this high and this high, no life jackets. That part I can't stand. So we've been making an appearance down there at the boat launch, but we need to be in the water as well. And so we're looking to pay for half of it with the SEAS funds and put the equipment on it that's needed, the emergency equipment on it that's needed, and the maintenance on it with SEAS funds. So we're asking for the other half.
And so I think the big part of this is that, Chief and I have been working very closely on this, working with Harrison. The SEAS funds do bring it to a price that's able to be handled by the general fund. I'd also say another thing too, just to keep in mind, is that this is a buy board contract, so it's been, it's a cooperative agreement, so it's at kind of like the rock bottom price that the firm would offer the boat.
Okay.
That was going to be my question. Did you go through HGAC buy?
We did a buy board on this
Buy
one.
board.
They don't have a contract, unfortunately, didn't have a contract with HGAC, so I
Okay.
apologize.
Councilman D, question?
Does this include outfitting it? I mean, I'm assuming you're going to have lights and...
No, that's not the woo-woo lights and the radios and stuff. That's something else that we'll have to add on it. We have some stuff at the PD we're taking out of vehicles that we can put on it temporarily, but we're looking to get the marine lights, and that would be through the SEAS funds. We'd be putting that on there.
This boat,
Require a budget amendment? Does it require a budget amendment?
It
down the
will. I
road?
mean, obviously, you can approve it, and then what we do is we'd acknowledge this action in the next budget amendment.
So, Wilson, did you have a question?
yeah. This boat looks like it has 2 seats, that's it? It only has 2 seats?
Correct.
So,
Behind the console.
had to rescue somebody, what would you do with them?
You sit them on the floor, unless they have, I don't know if this is on test. Yeah, unless they're in a wheelchair, it's equipped that we can put wheelchairs on there. But if not, if they don't have to have a chair to sit in, they can sit on the floor. The floor is flat.
Oh, I understand, I see the boat and all, but like I said, I was just wondering why, and the boat wouldn't be able to be used for rescue? I mean, like water rescue? In case of another flood?
Yes, that's
It's a shallow draft motor on it?
Yeah, shallow with a tunnel hull. It's a Schedule 40 aluminum. You can drag it across the freeway a couple miles before it's going to start leaking. It won't sink. It's full of styrofoam. It's an incredibly built boat. We went to the factory where they put them together.
So if you were using it for rescue, everybody have to sit on the floor?
Yes.
What's the total amount of people that you put on the boat?
It's ready to hold 13 during Harvey.
13 plus the 2 people? The two?
During Harvey and Harvey, Houston Police Department had one, they had 26 on.
These are the same boat company that HPD uses, League City, Friendswood, all the agencies around here that have marine activities. This is the boat manufacturer they use. We have right now 8 officers, including myself, that are marine certified. We're in the process of getting 4 more certified because you have to go through a special school to get certified to be able to do this.
One other question, where are we going to keep it?
The PD.
And just down in the parking lot? Just down in the parking lot?
Don't know that yet, but we're going to make a place for it.
Yep. Councilman Simpson had a question.
You already answered one of them. I was asking if I was going to ask if any of the peace officers needed any additional certification. Second question: are there going to need to be any ordinances passed for maritime for this to?
Right now, Captain Mason, when the city first incorporated, Captain Mason wrote an ordinance that pretty much covers everything that we need. There may be some. He's been working with him and. Lieutenant Price have been working with Parks and Wildlife to make sure we're up to date on all our ordinances.
Okay, and then my last question is basically the ask is $27,525.
That, I think that's the number. Is that the number? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Councilman
I'm just curious, Dickinson has been around a long time, and we've not had a boat all these years. I'm not sure how we've done without a boat.
Sheriff's Department, when they were free.
Well, Dickinson,
Well, we have asked the Sheriff's Department, we have a good working relationship with all the agencies around here. Even League City has come into our jurisdiction and worked for us. But after so long, we're seeing the effects of it is you can only ask for so long, and then it's like, okay, when are you going to start taking care of yourself?
right, yourself, yeah.
So I think we're at that point, and they showed us last year that they didn't show up at all.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, we need,
I so
actually, we're
move.
a little out of
Second.
order. We need a motion, all right. Motion by Councilman King, second by Councilman Simpson. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That'll move us on, thank you, Chief. That'll move us on to item 10C, consideration and possible action concerning on a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving repayments to the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts.
Yeah, if we could, Harrison, are you here, my friend? Yeah, you are. There you are, behind Yvonne. All right, so, council, so we have, and I think Harrison will be able to discuss a little bit better. Comptroller's office reached out to the city based on some, I believe, some prior year sales taxes, or maybe even for about 2 to 3 years worth of sales taxes, where a company that we have a 380 with, Archrock, basically paid taxes to the state of Texas. After a sales tax audit found that those sales taxes shouldn't have been paid to the state of Texas, and i.e. us being the point of sale. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Harrison to talk about, kind of what the steps are for us to get some of the sales tax funding back to the state so they can get it back to Archrock, who paid it out, which they have a 380 with us, so a major percentage of the sales taxes were already refunded to Archrock, so we don't have to, there's not that portion to be remitted, but we will be looking at remitting the other portion that did stay with the city. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, just a little bit of elaboration from City Manager. Archrock, it wasn't like the state paid back all of Archrock. Archrock paid in excess of what they were supposed to pay. Based on their 3-year audit, members of council in 2019, there was a similar example with Archrock from a 3-year audit from 2013 through 2016. Which the results were in 2019. This particular one was from 2016 through 2019. So it was 3 years of excess overpayments that Archrock made to the state. They did their sales tax audit. It was determined that they overpaid. The state reimbursed them. Then the state sent us letters saying that we needed to repay for what they paid us, both in the DMD and the city. And they gave options that you can do it, I think like a monthly payment that they automatically offset our current monthly sales taxes over, I believe it was 4 years, or you can do a one-time payment with a discount. And when I looked at the analysis, then I looked at what was done in 2019, and it was a one-time payment back to the comptroller's office because of the discount and because Archrock's a 380 payment. We had to reach out to them to check their calculations versus what we calculated to make sure that their reimbursement amount matched what we agreed to. And we had an agreement. They wired the funds to us, so we already received their money. So I think it just makes sense with the discount and the fact that they paid us all at one time. It would be a savings of about almost $43,000 to the city and a little bit over $14,000 to the DMD. And the DMD at their Thursday meeting last week approved the payment back to the comptrollers. So at the end of the day, I know it's a little bit kind of confusing because we owe the comptroller, but Archrock owes us because of what Archrock's overpayment to the state. So the end of the day is the city owes $2.1 million, which 1.5 almost 1.2 million was reimbursed by our truck. And then that is broken out by, because when the comptroller pays us, it relates to money that goes to the DEDC, to the street maintenance, and to the city general fund. So that's all kind of split. The DMD owes $700,000, almost $701,000 to the comptrollers, and our truck reimbursed them $697,000. So right near a $3,000 difference to the DMD.
So how much do we actually owe? Well, I'm throwing numbers out there. How much do we have to?
Net?
Yes, net. How much do we have to send to comptroller, whoever it is?
Well, we have to send
$2 million.
2.1 million to the comptroller, but of that, we already received 1.2 million back. So $900,000, which is kind of split between DEDC, street maintenance, and the general fund.
Okay.
Councilman Deeds, you had a question as well. Was that your question?
Well, no, my question is, okay, this happened.
2019?
Hang on.
Yeah.
You want to go?
No, go.
This happened, or came to our attention the first time in 2016. And then there was another audit from 2016 to 2019, which we're dealing with now. My question is, have they been overpaying since 2019 to current date? Are we going to be faced with the same, and why wasn't this corrected from 2016 on?
I think that's...
Is that a comptroller issue?
That's a state of Texas comptroller's office issue.
That they're doing bogus calculations, or what's?
Well, it's our truck is paying the sales taxes. Well, I mean, really, I don't even know. It's hard to even say, is it the comptroller? Our truck is paying the sales taxes, and normally when you're dealing with sales taxes, you assess. I mean, normally, companies, you have it in your own, point of sales, or your own, software to decide whether or not you're gonna, that sales taxes gets calculated. I think what it is there are certain things that because of the work they do, certain things aren't eligible for sales taxes, but they're charging themselves sales taxes to, and so forth, to remit back to the comptroller. Then they get an audit firm years later to then say, can you go back through all that? Because I think, there's some things that we probably should have never paid sales taxes on, like manufacturing, to be specific. Like, manufacturing, you're not supposed to be charged sales taxes for the things you buy and sell in some of those situations. And so what they do is they'll send an audit firm 3 years after the fact to go back over every transaction they've, paid sales taxes in to make sure it actually hits those categories.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm just saying that, but
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that the first time they got audited, and they said, and the state said, these items don't qualify. To me, that should be a red flag to ArcRock that, we've been paying this on things that don't qualify. We can't do that anymore, but yet it appears that they did it for not only another 3 years, but it sounds like there's a good possibility they may be doing it right now, from 2019 to now.
It seems like
so what can we do as, since we're in the agreement with them on a 380 to prevent getting hit with another bill like this a year from now?
Art may be able to help a little bit.
What you have to do is you have to just make the comptroller aware that this is unacceptable, that they need to do better, but it's still a state agency. Because what it is normally you don't find people that will pay more money than they're supposed to. But evidently this company, they do it, and they do it as part of their business practice. And which is unusual, because when they get that auditing firm charges them. So they're not getting their full money. They overpaid, then they pay an auditing firm to come in to say how much they overpaid, which takes a percentage of that. So they're throwing money away, but it's costing us money later on because they're overpaying. And all we can do is just get with the comptroller and say, hey, this is causing us a lot of pain. You have to stop this. Do something. There has to be something you can do on the front end or to them, and that's all we can do is just whine to them.
Okay, so what do we need to do to put that in action?
Big thing is going to be, number one, obviously y'all decide on how y'all want to handle this evening, but number two is as part of that conversation, as we're sending that remittance back of whatever, however y'all want to deal with it, but then it becomes we're going to have to sit, I don't know who their complaint department is, but I know that Art has worked pretty hard on the comptroller, and so I think Art is going to be a major part of maybe helping me find the right people to start trying to shake that tree. Unfortunately, with it being a state agency, I'd like to think that they'll be responsive. What I would say is what we're going to be doing on our end of things is, of course, as we are looking at, obviously future budgeting on our end of things, until we know for sure that the state of Texas is actually working well with Arch Rock to get these categorizations done correctly, what we want to make sure of is that we are actually fiscally managing pretty much to expect every 3 years something of this effect to be coming in until we know that it's not happening anymore. So, I mean, there's a two-prong approach. One is we have to manage and expect that there'd be something that would be remitted every 3 years of a certain amount of money. We'll probably figure out, okay, based on the last two ones, back from 2016 and the 2019 audits, saying, okay, about approximately how much of the total sales taxes that they paid out got remitted back to them, and then using that as kind of like our benchmark to say this is what we need to make sure we scale our sales taxes down on an annual basis to be ready for that.
Well, the Wally Deeds benchmark is $900,000 is the equivalent of 9 cents of ad valorem tax on the tax rate. That's good.
Yeah, Harrison, I know when I saw the management district bill, we had an impromptu meeting, and I recall you mentioning that you would, once we get this squared away, possibly have some conversations with Arch Rock on their end.
Exactly.
Has that started? If so, how's that going, or has it not started yet?
Yeah, I know after I spoke with them about this, they are still in the process of their next set. So I told them to let me know as soon as they start knowing information, so we can plan accordingly. And as the city manager said, like in a budget process, if you look back at what we paid in 2019 and what this request is, it's probably less than a 5% difference. So it seems like it's about the same amount. So if we can look at reserving or scaling back what we're projecting sales tax revenue to be that year by 1/3 of this amount over the years, when it does hit, then the funding's already there.
My understanding,
They can't correct it.
my understanding from talking to the city manager before the meeting is we're very healthy financially and able. This is not like I'd rather not pay it, but we have to. That it doesn't really pose a particular problem for us. Is that correct? Are there any other comments or questions?
No, on one, I agree with Wally. When this happened the last time, we discussed then about Arch Rock getting in touch with them, getting some kind of communication with them, because at that time it was a big hit towards the budget at that time to come up with that money. And I don't understand. I've never understood this either, Art. This is, like I said, this is the second time that it's been before me while I've been a council member. I always thought it was insane for somebody to overpay their tax, whether it's sales tax or anything else. But apparently they use this as some kind of a slush fund, I guess, so that, that way they don't have to get penalized for not paying enough,
There's not a penalty. I've had that occur with another city, and the one time it was over $1 million, then they came right back, and about 3 years later, another audit had another $1 million they had to pay overpayment. So
I'm pretty
it's
sure
not
the next
unheard
time
of.
this next audit's up, because they're doing it every 3 years.
Yep.
We'll be faced with this next budget year probably.
No, it would be coming, the next one would be, because we just got that are for 2016 to 19. So if they're going to do 2019 to 22, this will probably coming into 24, 25 cycle.
Okay.
Councilman Decker.
There's a 2% service fee that somebody's paying. If you choose option one.
That's the discount.
Huh?
If we
That's the-
pay a one-time fee, we take off the 2% service fee. If it's a monthly payment,
Somebody's
it's
making
it's
money.
2%.
Basically, what is going to happen is on the 2% service fee, they waive the 2% service fee if we pay it in one lump sum.
Yeah. Okay, we do need a motion, however.
That's right.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve, a second by Councilman King, a second by Councilman Simpson.
Which option are we?
I think we're talking the lump sum option, is that
Right.
correct?
You said we were financially healthy?
Yeah.
Harrison, you said we're financially healthy?
Yes, you know,
We can afford to pay it with one, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
We can afford to pay it.
yeah, I looked at, when I was doing the analysis of the lump sum payment, like I said, we got back almost 1.9 million in total from our trot. And then I looked at what sales tax is averaging year to date, and I think it was near 30% higher than last year. So the sales tax have been itself very healthy.
That's his way of saying yes.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Theo, do we need to remove, is it item 10D or 10E that needs to
Both
be
D
removed?
and E, we're going to be coming back to you guys on these two projects. We're going to be bringing you guys some construction contracts at the next meeting.
All right, so we'll remove item 10D and 10E. We do not need a motion.
Not to remove.
And, I mean, the staff's, I mean, you can make a motion if you want, but you don't have to. There's nothing to it. All right.
I'd like to, at this time, I'd like to remove from the agenda items 12 and 13. I don't see the board having it.
There's been a motion to remove items 12 and 13 from the agenda, and a second by Councilman Wilson, a second by Councilman Simpson. Is there any discussion?
No executive session, is that what you're saying?
If you pull the item. Where to do the motion? He's removing, he wants to remove items 12 and 13 from the agenda.
It's the executive session
Both, 12 and 13.
and action.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with, let's just show of hands. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion carries. That'll take us to item 14,
Move to
adjournment.
adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn by Councilman Simpson, second by Councilman King. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.